Hello Planet Sewers, it's Mathletee here, and welcome to the final speed build for the elephant experience within the Houston Zoo recreation. Thank you so much for checking out the video today. If this is your first time watching, we are on episode 11. Episode 10 technically is a live stream I did for a charity event last weekend. So if you didn't catch that and you've been following the series and wondering where this building came from, that is it. So I did struggle in that live stream to get the terrain, or I guess I should say traversable area, to work for these elephants. It was a height issue and I fixed it, and then I reloaded the zoo and it came back. So I ended up taking out a little bit more from this side of the shelter that they have, and I changed the colors quite a bit and a little bit of the design from the last time I did a speed build for this project. And so I'm putting in custom fences. The elephants keep breaking this one, and my plan was always to do some custom fences because they look very different in the Houston Zoo than what I have in place. So their constant escape got me a little more on the ball to get that going. So we're not going to do a speed build all the way around of the fencing. We're just going to do a little section here and there so you get to see how I put it together and just moving it along a little bit. And then the same thing with the bigger one. So they actually have a people barrier in this zoo for along the path, and then they also have the elephant barrier a little further back. I didn't quite space mine out as much as I should have. When I went back and looked after I got all this done, they do have a lot of plant work in between these two barriers, but I did not go back and move them. It's a little difficult once you get it in. Maybe later, but I like it better this way, in-game wise. I didn't want to block off all the views with plants, because they do have theirs set up to kind of block it, to get you to move to different areas to view the elephants. So we're just going around our past build, which was, I think, the first episode for the elephants. So we're technically into the fourth episode of elephants. I had no idea this was going to take this long. I'm coming over to the little staff building that I built during the live stream as well. I do need to add some water treatment. I noticed that as I was watching the speed build that the water had turned dark, so I must have forgotten the water treatment facility. I blew up that path over there a couple of times and put it back, so I'm finally putting it back again, and that's the final rendition of that path. I wanted to raise it up, but I had an elephant escape over there, so I had to put just a small path in, and I wanted to put in this little elevated section. It turned out being a little bit bigger, actually a lot bigger than it is in real life, but that's okay. But they do have like a little seated area behind so people can walk, but there's also a little area where you can sit and watch the elephants swim in their pool. When we went and visited, the elephants were having a grand old time in that pool. It was a really hot day. This is just an in-game blueprint for the jetty for aquatic animals, and I wanted to use this for my decking to cover the path with, since that is what they have at the Houston Zoo. And I'm changing out the posts to kind of match the colors that they had in the Google walk that I was doing, Google Earth. I like to use Google Earth as a reference. I'm fortunate enough that Google Earth walks all the way through this zoo, and they go into most places, so I don't have to go visit the zoo every time I want to build something. But they also have really good images of their 360s as you walk through, so most places I can get really close and see what it actually looks like. I believe the images, some of them are a little old, so my recreation may be a little outdated from what's actually in the zoo. I don't know how often they actually walk through it, but on my visit to the zoo, this is pretty much what it looked like. I didn't really pay attention that close to the colors. I just used the Google Earth. I'm in there. I did take a lot of pictures, but as I went through the back part of the zoo, my phone was dying, and my family was actually getting a little annoyed with me because I was taking pictures, so many pictures. There's a lot of stuff, little tiny details I wanted to add into these builds, like the actual elephant signs and things. I didn't do that in this episode yet. I'll probably add that later, and we'll go back through when I get that in. So I changed the color of the path there. I wanted the curb that I can't get rid of to kind of match a little better instead of being white. And continuing, I struggled with that, getting these little rails in that they have to keep guests from falling in. We don't want them going swimming with the elephants. So I also, I lost my train of thought. My dog is playing with a toy, and I kept pausing because he's hitting the wall with his toy. So you may hear that, there it goes in the background as his little feet hit the wall. So I'm copying this over and then getting rid of what's going to block the path. I was thinking about, what I needed to shorten this up so that it could get close to the edge, and I was hoping it would hold the color, but it didn't, so I just did them one by one and deleted. So continuing with our barrier here, and the arrows were not being my friend. I had to keep changing them. So what my dog has is, I don't know if it's like Nyla, but it's one of his favorite toys. It's a purple bone with spikies on it. It's just not even really a bone. It's kind of more like a little barbell almost. And I don't know why, but he likes to lay up against the wall with his feet and scratch the wall with his feet while he plays. It's really weird and very noisy. So my apologies. I thought I was going to have a great voiceover. Ruby is not out yet. She is still in her sleep cage. The dogs decided at about 6:30, 7 a.m. it was time to wake up the house. So anyway, Ruby doesn't usually come out until a little bit later. But continuing copying this little bit over, I should have, well, I'm watching here, actually, I didn't notice as I was doing it, but I did notice it during the build as well. I should have grabbed those jetties so that I could have saved some myself a little bit of work, because it's also missing some of the support beams that those jetties have. But I did have a little bit of a struggle with the path being in the way of getting things selected as well. So that's why there's a lot of little cuts, and the occasional I needed to get up to let a dog out or something. Nobody wants to watch my screen sit still for a long time. But yeah, right here it was like, I should have, copied these with the posts, but that's okay. It's all right. So then here I notice I don't have the support beams, because they're part of, I guess I had entered the group, and so it didn't copy over their support beams. So I just added that in and kind of tried to keep it with the posts on the bottom. Once I get all the way across, I'll raise up a second one, I think. And I did struggle to get these selected to do that. So that was why I didn't really show the backside, because I was trying to line it up. It was a nightmare. But anyway, lesson learned. Make sure you grab everything you want. So I used the jetty over here to create another little template. I was not able to just grab it from off the path. So that's what that is. And I don't know why I thought I needed one on the other side. And so here, this is kind of a symmetrical piece, so I have no problems moving it around. And then I start to move it and realize, I have that post over there. So I'm going to take that post off, and then I'll copy that one. And that sent my arrows all wonky because it lost its symmetrical, I guess, place to be. And so it made moving it a little more difficult. So as I came around the curve, I decided I'll go ahead and get this one. And it's just easier to go back and delete those extra posts versus not having the arrows in a way that I need them. So my elephant escaped again, but that's my fault. I still haven't finished the barrier, so I went ahead and made the null barrier a little bigger to fit what was in the zoo, and then I put him in a box and paused the game so I wouldn't have to worry about escaping elephants over there, because I did finish the left side habitat. However, I was a little tired of doing those barriers. It's a lot of work all the way around. Some of it was just boring, and I wanted to work on something different, so I went back and did that a little bit later, so it will just magically appear. I did not include that at all. I didn't even record it. It's the same thing over and over, just copying the same little set. Sometimes I'll make it bigger to make it a little easier, but these paths they're not straight. They have some curves in them. So really I just kind of did 2 blocks at a time to get around the habitat. And then on the other side, where it's a little more straight, I just copied, bigger set. So here I need to make just a little small connection. So I noticed too, it bothered me, I didn't have the support underneath. I highly doubt anybody's going over there to look at that, but I had to add something in there. And they don't have that jetty piece in any different size. So I just kind of set them a little bit back so that you get the line in there, and that was the best I could get. I could use a different piece, I guess, but then the colors would be different. So that's what I went with. So we're gonna finish off the decking up here. To do this, I did have to lower a few or raise a few, so you'll notice it goes around as it goes around. Some of them are kind of hidden, and that's to keep them from fighting each other as they render. If they're not a little bit different in their elevation, they'll just kind of go wonky, and it's almost like a wave effect if you haven't seen it. Or if you have seen it, that's what it is. It's those 2 pieces. They're exactly in the same spot of the plane where it's rendering, and they fight each other to be visible. So I just moved them a little nudge here and there to keep that from happening. Sometimes you can nudge them all the way back to where they are level again, and it won't happen. Other times I've noticed you can't do that. You have to make one a little higher than the other or a little lower to get that to stop. But I also like the way it kind of gave the curve. I thought it made it look pretty realistic, because not all decks are going to be just straight in how they're built. I grew up in the South on what's called Clear Lake. It's not clear at all. It's really muddy. But anyway, so yeah, not all docks are perfect. A lot of times they are a little wonky, and they don't follow a specific pattern all the time, depending on who made them. And then adding in just some, I felt, they needed a little bit of rails as they went up the stairs instead of just the holes. Good Lord, what is my Corky doing? He has got something big now. So now I'm going in and adding in some plant work. So they have quite a lot of plants right here. So I did sink some trees down to kind of give that brushy bramble look, and just different sizes of things, trying to fill this in. It looked kind of like it's maintained, but it's not. They just had a lot of, I guess, real scraggly style plants that are real common in the South, that don't require a whole lot of maintenance. So I'm a little sniffly today. Not sure why. My sinuses are just unhappy, I guess. It happens. And then I remembered I did want to put mulch in. I should have done that first, because I did fight it on the other side, trying to get underneath those plants. So I made sure to get that in before I continued with my foliage. So just copying those over. I was trying not to overlap them too much. I guess it doesn't really matter. I could have used some bigger pieces. Everybody approaches it differently. So I really was, like I said, just trying not to have too many. And it's an odd shape little area, so it was like playing Mulch Tetris. So there's where I was really struggling again. The plants get in the way. I couldn't just select and copy. I had to go find ones from other parts of the little plant bed, I guess you would call it. and filling that in with random plants that I just kind of filtered for this area. And I'm almost there. I wanted to add in a few more of those little palms. They don't quite have the right palm in the game for what I see in this area. And there's that dirty water again. I haven't noticed it. I was so focused. I didn't notice it until I was doing some aerial shots. And I was like, well, I'll go in later. So I just copied this little guy over here so that it would have the same plant mix. And it was already kind of started for me instead of redoing it. And so I just did the same thing, moved a whole bunch of mulch around to cover this up with different pieces, trying to stay within this awkward shaped barrier that I made, fence, whatever you want to call it. So working around the plants, again, is a little difficult. I'd hoped it would kind of grab a little more or fit better, but it did save me some work. So I got that in and then added in a few more plants and moved some around so that, oh, yeah, I guess I wanted that one. I couldn't find it. So stuck more of those down in there and then using a tree as a bush again to cover up the ground a little bit. So having a look, trying to decide what I need to do next. And when I was looking at the images, they had a lot of trees and things up against this, and they were actually on the inside of that barrier. They're between the short fence and the habitat barrier. But I decided not to go back and move that. I just put them on the inside. I imagine the reason they're like that is to keep the elephants from being able to damage the trees. But those barriers are not very easy to move, so I just left it the way it was. Over here on the patio, they do have a very unique little sunshade going on. So mine is a little bit bigger, but also I made the path a little bit bigger, so it kind of worked out. Because when I was looking at the image, I was like, oh no, this thing is going to be huge compared to what they really have. But I made my path right there kind of huge compared to what they've really got. So it worked out. This covers in the same style. There's two of them that come out, and that's kind of how it was in the picture that cover the seating area. I did forget to actually put in benches over here, so that's something I'll have to do when I come back to this area. So my plans for the next episode is I'm going to go back over to the natural encounter building on the side. I'm going to build a Meerkat Habitat, which is going to represent the prairie dogs. So this zoo will actually have two Meerkat Habitats because they actually do have meerkats somewhere else in the zoo. But the game doesn't have prairie dogs. So the Natural Encounters building is just celebrating and showing off the wildlife you would see in the local areas and within Texas. So that's why they have the prairie dogs over there. And they have a little habitat for them on the side of the building that's outside. So I'm going to add that as the next episode. Then I did notice my zoo is a little off in scale as I was looking at how I had placed some things in relationship to the elephant habitat, the reflection pool. But there's another building in between the elephant habitat and the reflection pool. And it is a reptile house. There we go. Words were just not coming. So I'm going to put in the reptile house after that. So those are just some little plans of the direction the zoo is going to go. We're going to fill in these little spaces in between the elephant habitat and the reflection pool. So I'm just building my template. I was trying to get that nice and lined up for the sunshade here. Copying that side over and then making it all one group and getting that nice and level before I start copying it over. I really wish that hadn't curved, that it had stayed more corner. I guess I could have done a grid off that right there, but oh well, that's not what I did. And I probably could add, after I looked at it in the editing phase, one more off to the edge to kind of make my symmetry needs happy, to cover up that little corner. Originally I didn't, because it's going to stick out kind of like it does on this side, but it does stick out on this side, so that's okay. But anyway, the thought process that I go through when I make things, symmetry is really hard for me. I like symmetry, probably because I have a math degree. It's just the way my brain works. I really like things to be balanced when I look at them. I love art, though, that is not, and I'm always really amazed by how they can make those things come together really well without the symmetry. I can't do it. That's why I'm not an artist. Everything has to be the same on the left and the right, or balance even. That's my quirk. So sometimes it is real hard for me, like these right here are not going in the same direction, but that's okay. They might not really in real life. I've seen it. It's just, I guess when you're doing these kind of things, it's just what I focus on. So adding in plants along the edge as they walk through here. So you can see I do have the Meerkat listed right there. Oh, sorry about that. That was a little painful. I was looking around, I guess, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Adding in the last little bit of the decking, so it does start kind of randomly, and then it actually, I think, elevates a little sooner. I just didn't put it in the right spot. That's all right. We'll just have the decking on the ground a little bit, and it goes through this curve as you walk close to the elephants and this side of their water feature. I also noticed while I was editing, I probably should have put in a little more plants on the left side of this, but they don't have a lot there. They do have some, but it is really focused on being able to see the elephants. They do have some signs that tells you all the elephants' names, I think when they were born and stuff like that. I had a little glitch when I was playing the game right there. I don't know why they would not just let me move them. It was really weird. They were bouncing all over the place. And my most favorite, as we all know, rock work, which really it's not. I feel like I've just been doing rock work for days between several projects. I live streamed yesterday and had a lot of rock work to do in there too. So it seems to be following me around. So then I was looking back there, so I think I need a few plants. There are a couple buildings back there. I haven't put them in yet, but I'm gonna add those when we come back to this. There's, as you go that direction, I think some okapi, I don't know how you say that. But anyway, they have some of those over there in the Houston Zoo, and a couple of other animals as you walk that direction. So when I come back to do that, I'll put in those buildings, because I think that they support the elephants as well as those habitats that are over there. So I'm going to add those in when I get back to that side. As I said earlier in the video, I plan to finish off what's between the elephants and the reflection pool. Anyway, we're going to speed through the entrance. If you haven't seen all of this, those are episodes 1, 2, 3, and on. So we're going to slow down as we get close. There's a building to the left I haven't built yet. I just put the walls in as a placeholder. It looks like it's an education center, and I need to add a water treatment into that group right there. I have power, but I don't have water, so I'm going to see if the water box should fit over there. So if you haven't seen it, this is the first episode that we did with the elephants, and this is their habitat. And as you can over here, this is what we did during the live stream for the mango wildlife range. Oops, I see some plants peeking through already. So that's their little inside area. So we'll speed along over here, go back the way we came, because this is really all staff area. It's not for guests. They do watch the elephants out there, but the viewing point for guests is the direction we're going now. And I do need some more plants. There's a little section right there that is just full of plants. You don't walk in it. It's very foresty. So you can kind of see in the background there, shelter for the elephants, the first habitat. realized too, I forgot education. I was just so excited. I got all this built. I totally forgot about some of the little details like trash bins and places to sit. So I'll add that in later. I always do walk through the zoos, my zoo anyway.